you had to totally do what, 3 reboots right before a show? That's awesome. All right. I'm going to play the video. It's going to mute everybody. And then after the video, just say we're live, Jeff. All right. Today on The Dorks, we talk with Logan Smith, CTO of Argyle, an augmented reality solution for construction that focuses on solving real job site problems and leveraging the model as context for those on the job site. Sit back and enjoy the show. This one went all nerd.
And we're live. That's right. We're back. Episode 69, Mixing Reality with Fantasy. That's right. We are here to talk all about mixed reality. We'll probably get deep into some, modeling and some in the field, maybe some location awareness. I don't know. We got Logan with us. We'll get to you, buddy.
Howdy.
I'm starting off with my drink. I'm going to stay salty. This is new. Try out Element, LMNT. Just go to lmnt.com. I'm loving this stuff. I found it through another one of my favorite podcasts, which we can go into later if we want. But that's where I'm going. I'm staying salty, and it's the grapefruit version. So I'm getting off that Zip Fizz and on to stay salty. Jonathan Marsh, what are you saltying up today?
Okay, so I don't have the bottle because it's downstairs, but my wife made in 2016 a bunch of mead, so a bunch of honey wine. And this is the honey wine mixed with chamomile flowers from the garden. And we lost all of them. So we made a ton of them and couldn't find them. And we found them, and then we primed them with some priming sugar, so they're all carbonated now. And they are a beautiful mead, man. They like, if you ever get mead and it's flat, it's not as good. Carbonated mead, sweet, it's fine. And chamomile has this beautiful floral scent. Yeah, it's just, it's beautiful. I'm very, very blessed to have a wife who wanted to make some beverages. Trent, what are you packing this evening?
Once again, John, you might have like some of the most interesting ways of presenting anything. It's like it's just chamomile mead. Yeah. No, I'm once again, guys, I'm sporting just a soda from the local grocery store here. Still doing a couple goal weight and fitness goals working through. So the alcohol is still going to be about 58 more days away again on this cycle. So yeah. So that's where I'm at with it. But John, I think John, you made up for me, and I'm gonna take it down to our esteemed guest Logan here. And I saw him sipping something. He definitely had something
right
that
here.
didn't look boring. Yeah.
That looks
this
bourbon-y.
This is bourbon. Good. I'm actually feeling very Oregonian right now. I have my like Mount Hood glass here with Mount Hood pressed right into it. I am drinking Freeland bourbon, also local distillery. I don't know how their distribution is. It's here in Portland, actually all women owned and operated, which is very fun. Male dominated industry. I've got some cheers for that.
Right on, man. If you haven't tried Penelope is another one of the women-owned bourbons that's beautiful. It's really good. It tastes like a Japanese whiskey. It's a good solid bourbon.
Oh, nice. I've made mead before, and I do think losing it for a few years is the only way to do it. I actually made it, hated it, ignored it in my shed for 3 years, and then found out it was delicious.
Yeah, dude, it's supposed to age for 5 years anyways, but like this is a 2016. That's a long age,
That's good. It needs it.
Yeah, it does. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, Logan? Jeff seems to be busy. He's staring at something very, very, very like it's very interesting.
I think he
not
might
sure
have
what it
actually
is.
Frozen.
He does.
He's staring that long for real.
He's probably doing
doing
another.
his best.
He's doing another.
statue.
another thing. But Logan, introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about what you're doing and why we might want to ask you about AR/VR.
Sure. So I'm Logan. I used to be an architect, and it was, so much fun being an architect. No, so I worked at a firm here in Portland for a while, and when VR came onto the scene, so I was just starting to get into the more, tech side of it, where I was building Revit plugins, stuff like that. VR came on the scene. My firm got a few headsets, and I just jumped in with both feet, started moving away from like regular practice of architecture and just doing VR there for the firm. After a little while, I sort of saw some greener grass outside of traditional practice and went and started a studio, doing like a lot of one-off projects.
Yeah.
Whether it was like, hey, we're building a new campus, we need to get buy-off from the owner about these different facets, or we're trying to pre-sell condo units. So it was a lot of, VR stuff, or more showcase and buy-in kinds of AR. But one of my co-founders and I from that company had this vision that we kept coming back to, that was like, oh, if we like, the holy grail would be all of your BIM and all of your data just living in its place, living on site. And we kept saying, but it's just too hard, we can't do it. And then eventually we figured out a few things where we said, okay, that's it, it's time. And we jumped full into that. And so we've been doing AR overlay ever since. That's at Argyle, my current company.
I have a question just to explain, is specifically with Argyle. One of the biggest things within the construction space when it comes to AR is, what's it being used for, and is what it's being used for affected by drift? When it first came out, I think it was looked at as a layout tool replacement, and then we ran into a lot of technical difficulties with locations there, and then it became, well, let's just kind of give ourselves context to build from, and let's maybe track what's going in. What focus goal areas are you trying, problems that you're trying to solve? You know what I mean?
Yeah. So drift, I don't know if the audience is all totally familiar with that, is like these devices are trying to look through their various kinds of cameras, depending on the device, and understand their position from moment to moment. And you can imagine just trying to guess that based on what you're seeing. It would be easy to have inaccuracies. And so it can, like, if you walk 10 feet, it thinks you walked 9.5 feet, right? And that has been a huge problem. And so I think when AR first showed up on the scene, people imagined it as like, oh, we can leave your tape measure at home, forget the total station, this has replaced everything. And that was, not the case. But there's been a few things. One is that is getting better and better when you have dedicated devices that are doing AR. Like we built first on the HoloLens 1, moved over to HoloLens 2, and the tracking got a lot better. And we've recently ported to the Magic Leap 2, and that one, like, just in terms of drift, I've never seen anything like it. It feels solid. There are still other problems with having your holograms in place, which, like, we can get into later. But drift wise, it's incredible. But either way, I think the important thing is to look at this. It's like the difference between precision and accuracy. A total station, you are sub-millimeter precision, but are you asking the right question?
Yeah.
Right. You, like, some of our early customers, the way they described it was like they were doing layout and they were out there with their total station shooting points, but they were the ones who put those embeds into the model, then they were the ones who shot the point, then they were the ones who checked their own work. If you make a wrong assumption in there, then you're repeating your same mistake over and over again. You look at it in AR and suddenly it's obvious. Like mistakes are just stupid obvious when you see the real thing a foot off from where the intent is.
We were getting great value putting AR maps over modules because it would show valve handles and valve actuators and some of these things that are more subtle as you're doing the install. And it's like the first time we went out there, it was like those actuators are pointing the wrong direction. And it was shocking to the people in the fab shop. And they instantly were like, okay, this is a win. We can see when we mess up. And you're doing this again. That was in a fab shop, very controlled environment. You guys have moved out to the job site with that same type of accuracy.
Accuracy, yeah. So what we've like really focused on is something that I think was like this was the missing piece, right? Is we had precision from something like a total station, any of these laser based or tape measure or whatever. But we needed accuracy. We needed to be able to get large scale convenient sort of understanding. So like our big focus was we need to be able to align the digital to the physical, and then we need to be able to come back a week later and it still is aligned and it still knows what it's looking at. Or we need to be able to align it over here and then walk 300 feet across the campus and still see something over there, or set it up in this room and then the next day say, actually, I really want to look at something in this room, and I don't have to go back to the job trailer, print out new QR codes and lay them in place or anything. So we really focused on getting that, good enough accuracy. We say like, yeah, it'll be within an inch. Don't rely on AR beyond that right now. But it'll be within an inch everywhere on site. When you want it, it's already ready to go. That's been our big push.
Yeah. So is it safe to say then for all our contractor friends out there that like the goal here is not to replace those precision instruments like a total station? I mean, yet, right? So I mean, really what you're looking at is like the augmented reality is augmenting the precision instrument. I mean, is that the play that they should be looking at now? Because they're always looking for, how do I replace, something, or how do I? So I want to make sure we're guiding them in the right direction.
Here's what you want to replace with AR. You want to replace having to rip out a ton of concrete because you put the embed in the wrong spot. So it's like it's not replacing these other tools that you're using. It is catching a new kind of error or speeding up a process because you don't have to go back and forth to use these higher precision tools all the time. Because a lot of mistakes, you don't need a millimeter to figure it out. So like that's the place where you want to find AR, is the stuff that you didn't know to look for, or the stuff that because like if you're looking at 2D plans, if you're doing a tape measure, there are so many mental translations you have to make to get from 3D model to 2D plan to whatever's written on the side of the 2D plan to whatever your mental image of that is in your head, and then looking at the site. Every one of those mental translations is an opportunity to do just one little error, right?
Yeah.
And so like that's what you want to target with AR. It's not a total station.
Yeah, great advice. I mean, they're looking for stuff like that, and I just want to make sure they understand that there's still going to be a use case for a total station. There's still,
I've got a phone and I've got a desktop computer and I've got we unfortunately live in the world where we just keep adding shit and nothing actually.
Can you see my abacus back here? I think it's somewhere.
I'm kidding. One of the things that we were doing, or we were attempting to do, is we were looking at 4D schedules, and we were looking at project managers understanding what condition the site is in. And we were like, one of the things they used to do is they move the 4D schedule to the day that you're on the site. You take a look at it on your phone, you'd look up there, you say, okay, it looks like about everything that's in this picture is in the air. Have you done any integrations yet with your system, or have you seen any good integrations where project managers can come on a job site and using AR look around and say, I'm behind, or so-and-so is in the wrong place? Because I think that's one of those things that if a company is sophisticated enough to do 4D schedules, it's costing them money and they're not leveraging them. Let's find a way to take advantage of this, how many thousands of dollars they spend on this 4D schedule.
It's costing them
Yeah.
money. That much is certain.
Yeah.
Actually, okay, I'll be honest with you. I haven't seen as much use of it for something like 4D. I'm trying to I'm mentally caveating while I say this out loud. There are things that these more spatial tools are solving that are so helpful, and others where the piece of paper works okay. Where sometimes if it's just are these things installed, you need a list, or how many of them are installed at any given time. You need a list. We see them more go through and check every one of these things. This will lead you to where to check it and make sure it's fireproofed if it's that kind of thing, or make sure it's not installed on in front of the wrong column or whatever. Things where there's some we see most where it's is there some spatial potential problem, or is there a stupid mistake that you made, or maybe you don't want to look at the spec, you just want to click on the door and get information about the door. It's just the more convenient way to get information.
Mm-hmm.
But I haven't seen a lot of really heavily timing based stuff, because I don't know. I don't know.
So the next step of that, I want to stay right where you're at with that, because
hit me.
Using it to verify, right, to check things out there. So now the contractor is gonna. So what tells my lower skilled individual utilizing this technology what he's actually looking for to verify?
Huge. And that's okay. That's a really good example, the lower skilled, because I was an architect. I'm on job sites all the time. I still can't effectively read most 2D plans that are in the book. I don't know my way around the electrical plan. I don't know my way around the plumbing. I don't get what I'm looking at. And I've been in the industry a while. I think the old experienced people who are on the site, they know their way around. It's right. It's drawn right there. It's easy. But the newer people is where this helps even more. And so one of the first things we put in the app is the checklist where you just label look for fireproofing. You give them an introduction to what that looks for, and they have to walk the site and click on every physical thing that they're looking for and say, yes, this is correct, or no, this is incorrect. And then it sends out a report. That kind of thing where you can send a lower skilled person to do something that otherwise they would have needed to know more to do is big in our industry right now with a experience gap, right?
That's the contractor's language right now, right? I mean, that's what all of them want to know. I guarantee you that's how many of them have asked you that, right? That's got to be the big. It's definitely one of the solutions that you're trying to solve. Yeah, I mean, I'm almost sure of it. So.
Yeah, I think short term, we look at hey, we want to be able to look at our BIM on site and verify stuff. Long term, I think the thing you want to think about is, as this gets better and better, and as we cross certain thresholds, people are gonna start to think about their data as just living on site. Yeah. The information about that door isn't in a book, it's in the door. So that's the kind of thing where right now it's one thing, and then you start to step it forward and make it easier to use, and that's going to start to shift in big ways, add more and more kinds of use cases.
Yep. I think you're right. I think that's where it lives in reality, right? It lives where we are, and it makes. I've been in the business for a long time. I can't read plans at all. And
thank you. Yeah.
At all. Well, actually, there's this. It's funny, but it's psychologically known that there's a certain number of people, and it's pretty high, 25 to 40% cannot spatially see lines and turn them into the world. It's just it's just one of those things. Our brains don't do it. Mine don't do it at all. And I have 0%. I mean, I have been taught by estimators. I've had them show me it, point it out, and it makes no sense. And then I see things like Argyle, and I'm like, okay, see, now this puts this into reality, and even I could go check fireproofing and do those things and put it into context. And in that, it too, like, even if you can do that mental hurdle, like that flip, that takes time.
Yeah.
And like I said, there's opportunities for making mistakes in those mental translations.
Yeah, I like that. It's the mental translation error. You know, every time we translate or cut and paste. So yes, every time you put something from a document into an Excel spreadsheet into another, there's a room for an error. So it's error reduction too.
Yeah. You know, you look at the expense. I was doing, we were doing embeds, and like you said, we needed to check, make sure that they weren't bad, and we had actually been tipped off. Somebody said we think they're off. So what did it cost me? Well, I have to grab somebody, I have to grab a scanner, and then I go down like, and there's other ways to solve it, but like I grab somebody, I grabbed a scanner, I send them down there with the scanner, they scan the site, they take it back to my, and this is back before auto registration. So take it back, register it. I had 8 hours in telling you whether or not those things were in the right place. And
at the minimum.
by the time I told you they're in the right place, everybody's moved on, and we're up against a pour because it's embeds. I mean, I think that idea of having instantaneous context for information on a job site, I think it would be tough to really come down and say what the actual value of that is, because it's probably significantly higher than you would estimate.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
The accuracy, precision and accuracy, just like Logan said, right? I mean, the total station is precise, but all that's going to do if you're inaccurate is you're going to precisely lay out 300 inaccurate points, right? I mean, so if you can.
Don't do that.
Yeah. Well, good advice.
Wait. We do that all the time. Don't leave us to our vices.
You heard it from Logan.
Fine.
Don't do that. Don't do that.
I will say I thought what Trimble did was clever. I actually had tried, when I say what Trimble did, Trimble mended the two together and said, I think you could get to your point faster if you could see about where it's at. And then you use the total station to figure out exactly where it's at.
Yeah.
And we were doing that with the first generation HoloLens, where we were like, if you could see where that point's going to be rather than have it tell you to move forward or move back, and that's what it does if you're on the total station handheld, you might be able to get there faster and really improve. And we could do that, but the setup time was too extreme. Do you see, you know, like if I had yours, I would probably go ahead and give that a shot. I'd have my total station. I'd have your the HoloLens on, and I'd say, can I look and do this? And, you know, because mending the two together, now I'm a more, more of a cyborg on the job site.
But one caveat, John,
he's got
I'll give Logan a chance, but one caveat there, being together though, you're getting the AR and the total station data that they're merging together is the same known information though. So I'm not sure you're getting a really good check and balance between the two, because the AR is
it's set up in the same platform.
Yeah.
That's an extra point for using a separate AR and a separate. Man, good point. Good point.
So if you're trying to shoot these points, are they already known in the model then?
Yeah.
Right.
So if they're known in the model, then I would say bring those into an AR setup. You know, I'm going to recommend mine because, like,
well,
let's assume you're using mine.
We'll assume you were using yours.
Yeah, because I don't want to make any promises for anyone else's. You've got that in the HoloLens. You do one quick circle around the site to like make whatever adjustments you need, and then you've got the whole site aligned, right? That'll take you 2 to 5 minutes, depending on the size of your site, assuming you don't end up being trained at the same time. And then you have all those things there in your view. Or in fact, you could set it up as a checklist in Argyle, which means that it will actually point you to whatever is the closest unchecked piece in the checklist. There's like an arrow that, you know, like, all right, go over there. And so you could go through and check off every single point that you've shot with your total station and just see it's over there. All right, now I see it, and walk right to it. And then, of course, when you're there, I would pair those points with whatever they're representing. Like if you're locating embeds, pair it with a model of the embed, and that way you're more likely to notice just like brain fart kind of fuck ups, right? Just, oh, we put the wrong kind of embed here, or it looks like that's we're putting steel right next to where the duct needs to be, stuff like that.
With my story, actually, when we got all that back together, there was a problem. The problem was somebody had bent the rod on their particular total station, so they were laying it out wrong, because the rod kind of did a little S curve, and it wasn't a lot, but they're leveling it on the top instead of on the bottom because they didn't know what they were doing really, and so every single embed they did was off. All of them were off.
Yeah.
It was whether it was off
Generally, that's
left,
how it
right,
goes.
up, or down.
You either get them all or you get none. I mean, that's
Yep.
kind of the whole idea about this behind precision.
Do it bad really fast. It's awesome.
One of the spots that has sort of that caught me off guard, we designed this originally for very like commercial scale, where it's large areas, not super dense as far as the model goes. But we like the strongest demand we got once we actually got it ready in front of customers was more from like industrial and manufacturing type of construction, where like the site I was at today is an intensely dense, constantly under construction silicon facility where there's just pipes spaghettied all through for 40 feet solid. And they need to prefabricate stainless steel pipes to spaghetti through the spaghetti. And before, they were trying to figure out, how do we actually measure, like, what are our reference points for measuring this route? And so like the
now,
first,
have you,
go ahead.
Can you draw in your platform? Because I have seen what amounts to Tilt Brush, which is a VR program for drawing, integrated with a HoloLens used to draw piping. I mean, it was one of the, they're sunsetting Visual Live 3D, but Visual Live 3D for a while there had
Visual
an attempt
Live
at.
Yeah, they did too.
Yep.
Yeah.
You go draw it, and it was for, I know what it was for, and it was for that situation, because stainless sucks. You take a scanner to stainless, you're scanning a window or a mirror. It just doesn't work real well.
Hopeless.
So AR is way more effective there.
So we are very hesitant to do anything that is like if you're modeling an AR, especially if that's going to go back into the authoring software, people are very hesitant to let you touch their models in any kind of input way. So what our customers requested was instead, like, we had just like a simple tape measure. What's the distance between here and here? And they said, hey, give us components on that. So when we grab our tape measure and go from here to here diagonally, it gives you the X, the Y, the Z, the area, the volume with just one, diagonal. So that way they can measure from this point to this point and know the exact, rise and run and how to do that. So they'll just do a few measure tape points, write it down, and then draw it out the way that they're accustomed to actually doing authoring.
Okay, so I'm going to go over to Geek just for a second.
Hit me.
How many triangles? Like, in my mind, with AR, it's all about how many triangles can I produce. That's going to be how accurate my measurement is. And if I'm in a situation like that, I'm going to bet that my accuracy is down below an inch, because on that type of like piping and everything, there's only so many triangles. What do you say to them when they ask about accuracy in regards to the way that AR is seeing the environment?
Okay. Well, so there's a couple of things. One, if you're talking about triangles for input, that sounds like scanning, and we've done some experimentation. We don't currently have a public version of getting scans through the app. I think it'll never, like, it won't be a laser scan kind of precision anytime soon, but there's a lot of value you could get from being large scale, dimensionally accurate kind of scans. And so that's what we'll be putting in. But so like this input is really just, it's based on the alignment that you did, and it's just pure distance. And we're talking sub-inch, we're not talking about 1/8 of an inch.
Okay, cool. But less than an inch is, with insulation and with everything else, I think you're probably good at that.
Give yourself some. some tolerances. And the other thing is, as far as like the number of triangles, that's a big issue with AR in general, because as far as even just bringing content into AR, these models are huge. If you're gonna bring in a large scale facility, so that was one of the first things we had to solve. Our very first time on a site with a potential customer, they did not buy. This was way back in the day. It took 2.5 minutes to load the model. So you're standing there with a blank screen in AR for 2.5 minutes. No, nobody's going to do that. Even, they'll go to Revit, start it up, and then go get coffee. But when you're on site, you're not going to stand there for 2 minutes. So we had to make our own data pipeline. So now wherever you are in the model, it doesn't even process the other stuff. It just loads what's right around you. And then as you start walking, it forgets everything behind you and loads up where you are. So like, if we talk about like, how many triangles can we get in here? How big of a model? It's tough to like, it can be really big because it's never all in at the same time.
Yeah. It's calling off all of the stuff that's outside of scene.
Mm-hmm.
Can I ask you what did you, I've designed a bunch of stuff that
Mm-hmm.
reaches, not a bunch of stuff. I've designed in Unity. Unity has a very easy transition to AR and VR. Their
Mm-hmm.
ability to kit over stuff. What currently is your platform? Is it proprietary? You using one of the gaming engines?
So yeah, we built the AR portions of this on Unity. We've got Revit plugin, Navisworks plugin, and then the AR portion is in Unity, which was really helpful. Yeah. There was a lot of overriding that had to happen because Unity's made for games, and when you turn on this app, nothing's there. It's empty, and game dev expects things to like be there, built in.
Yep.
But that doesn't work for a tool like this. So it's like we built in all the tooling, all the algorithms, and did that in Unity. And then because it's in Unity, we could build it for HoloLens, then easily port it over to Magic Leap, and then port it over to iOS. Although the iOS it's not ready yet. Between you and I,
just us here.
Yeah. Don't tell anyone. It's a great proof of concept, but there's a few like technology hurdles that we are working hard on. And once we cross those, then it's ready. Like to me, unless I can pull out my phone or iPad, start up the app, and it snaps into place and shows me what I'm looking at in less than 10 seconds on the iPhone, then it's not worth it. Nobody's going to do it. So like there's a couple of missing pieces for iPhone to be quite there, and it's mostly about that automatic alignment piece.
Yeah, and you're gonna have to probably wait for the hardware. Like, I think that there's a level at which that next version of LiDAR, I think is gonna make it easy. Oh, you think you're gonna get it before that?
You can just see the tiny bits of my top secret project here. It's not out yet, but we are working on some like kind of deeper computer vision stuff.
Yeah.
And we're really focused on getting it to work in just using an RGB camera, because in order for this to be in everyone's hands, it needs to be not so hardware and setup dependent, right? It needs to kind of just work with whatever you have. Technology like this, new AI computer vision tech is very capable, but nobody's really made it do this job effectively yet. So I've got high hopes. No immediate promises, but some very interesting stuff.
There's some stuff out of Australia that was computer vision, trying to really track what's coming on and off of your job site. And it was using a lot of advanced algorithms. And when I talked to them in depth, a lot of what they were worried about was just the level of the hardware that they were working with. And they're like, man, one more level up, if it gets better in the same line, it doesn't even have to have exponential growth. It's like if you get better along the same lines you have the last few advances, they're like, then we can do it. And they're ready for it. And I do think that AI is going to change this. That might be like a good segue is like,
yeah,
given
that
the
was on my
disruption,
list.
what's up?
Given the what?
Given the disruption over the last, I'm going to say 3-4 months, as the large language models came out and started to be leveraged, like, are you rethinking? Are you worried about anything? What are you thinking?
Oh, definitely not worried about anything. Very, very excited. The large language models, I'll admit, so like I'm the CTO, but we're a small startup, so I'm doing a lot of the development myself. But any developer that we have on staff, we're like, here's GPT-4, use it as like, make sure you know how to use it and leverage it well. We've been able to do more faster with that, just helping our development, especially like working with the Navisworks and there's poor documentation. There's maybe parts of it that are less familiar. It's really helpful for that kind of thing. As long as you know how to sort of bend it to your whims. But then the other part that I'm really excited about and starting to experiment with is if we can take, AR is an incredible input tool that is being underutilized right now. Right now, people are mostly using AR for output, us included as far as our public offering goes, but like it's a camera on your face that is looking and listening and understanding where it is. And if you have something like a fully aligned AR, like BIM model, all of that is contextual data that if you then deliver that to something that has, arguably something like general intelligence that these MLs or LLMs have, there's way, way more that can be done when you feed them more context.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, that's really interesting. So you think that there could be an LLM database for a project, and all we're going to do is feed it. We're just going to feed it data, right?
Well, we have like our projects already are like Revit is a database.
True.
Revit's a database. It is full of all of this metadata. You hand that data with pictures of the site, as well as like augmented pictures of the site, and then start asking it questions like, there's enormous possibility here. There's a lot to be considered as far as like trustworthiness and safety. You don't want the LLM hallucinating to tell you what to do. So it's like there's a lot of exploration still to be done there, but I see nothing but opportunity in the AI advancements. AI and AR are best friends.
Yeah, that feeding it all that data and feeding it all that information and then being able to query it back quickly. And you can prevent a lot of that ghost and a lot of the strangeness that goes on because you have, again, this is where it's about the human getting the information, but also knowing how to ask it the right questions too. That's the beauty is,
Yeah, that should get better.
No, it will. Yeah. It'll get better.
It's better than it's ever been. I mean, like, look at this trajectory. Someone on the job site, they might be an expert in sheet metal. They don't know their way around a SQL query. So they don't know how to ask your database the questions that they want the answer to. But GPT is so good at SQL. They're amazing at SQL. So ask for the information you want. It can write the query and deliver the answer. That kind of thing gives it gives you access to things that you needed whole other skill sets to access before.
Yep. No, and in real time. I mean, next to real time, while you're in front of it with everything on your face, you can just do it. And eventually, on the phone and ask it the right question. And like you said, get that info back quickly.
Yeah. I mean, are we just, I guess, are we creating like construction workers that just have more breadth? I mean, or I guess like, is that the goal? We're just kind of trying to make more generalists, trying to make more people that just have way more information at their fingertips that they would never have as like a specialized
I mean,
the construction work, I mean,
I use I use these LLMs now as part of my daily process, and that makes me a software engineer with more breadth, right? Like I need to understand software engineering deeply in order to design these systems and build this in the way that it really needs to be. But I don't really write a good SQL query either, and I don't have to anymore. I don't have to spend weeks taking time off to go take SQL classes. I just say, I want a SQL query to do this. I know it's going to be efficient. I know it's going to get the job done well. So you've got a construction expert that really understands well how to do construction in one narrow field. They're going to be able to apply that knowledge more broadly way easier.
Well, and I see this going back to what you were talking about earlier, Jonathan, with 4D scheduling and understanding like how part of the problem with 4D and prefabrication is reverse engineering how things are loaded, how they get into a room, going through the process of figuring that. I've heard this multiple times, and all I can think of is like with an LLM, I can hand it this information and it can quickly find the way that I can reverse engineer to bring the pods and the racks and everything in and what order to do it. I still have to do all that, but I didn't have to take 3 days to figure out that order. I could get it done like that and know confidently it's going to go back in. Like this is where, you have to know how to attach those racks and how to do that with the pods and how to do all that. But man, reverse engineering the order and doing all of that sequencing, let the computer do that way better.
Yeah, I'm not sure we need to think about telling the end user how they're going to use or what they're going to get out of the product anymore. I think like Logan, something like what you guys are doing with Argyle, you're going to make something that collects information, but the end user is going to decide what info he wants, right? I mean, I think
already I'm so like, it is hilarious to me the ways that this product is being used that I never designed it for or imagined. Just today, I saw a video of one of our customers, an electrical contractor. They didn't align the hologram correctly. They intentionally aligned it with the ceiling on the floor and then walked down the hallway, marking out all of the lighting locations to then shoot up, right?
Yep. Shoot straight up.
I had never would have considered something like that. I'm like, well, of course, this is, it's overlay. You align it in place, but we've tried to make it as open-ended and controllable as possible. It is such a difficult like tightrope of like how automatic and easy versus open-ended and controllable do we make it.
It's a double-edged sword though too, right?
Yeah. And it's great. And like the more customers we have, the more I get people saying this didn't make sense. And I'm like, oh, I never would have thought about it that way. Yeah, let's change what that's called and things like that.
My number one hope for AR, I went really hard against the robots that print on the job site, that print on concrete, because I was like, jobs aren't always dirty. And I was proved wrong really in that. And one of the foremen actually was the one that like sold me and said, nope, you're wrong. It was collaborating around the same image on the floor. That was important. He's like, it's not that I can see it. It's that everyone can see it and collaborate around it. So I have a question for you on looking into the future, man. How long do you think it will be before the technology that's sort of driving this forward? We have Apple coming out with their AR or their VR headset with some AR capabilities. Mm-hmm. How long do you think before we start to see the hardware to really make this something where we can say we're going to collaborate because everybody's got one?
I'll tell you what. Side note, that was I listened to a few episodes of this show recently just to be like, oh, let me refresh. And I got to hear the one with one of the printer robots where you were talking about AR and there wasn't an AR person there. So I'm like, oh, this is good. This is juicy. Getting to hear what y'all said about AR when I wasn't around, it was perfect. But as far as like the hardware getting there so that we can all collaborate, I think that the limitation of these headset devices is one of isolation. And there's a partial solution to that is networking. So we have on our medium-term roadmap the combination of multi-user, basically using like multiplayer games, that kind of technology, just wrapping that in. So if I change the view settings, you all see the view settings change. If I move these things around or mark this stuff up, you all see it live. But not that many people are going to buy 20 headsets and then wear them all the time.
Yep.
So I think the bigger deal for a shared experience is getting the software so good at accommodating hardware limitations that even the whatever garbage hardware you have on site can run AR in a way that is effective and everyone on site can access it. Then you start to have a collaborative experience. There's I once heard it said this way, and I've never forgotten it, that there's an incredible amount of information bandwidth to pointing at someone's screen and making a gesture and talking about it, which VR and AR has always struggled with. So it's like when we can get that, and I do think that handheld, while it is lagging behind because the hardware is so lacking, it is that's a threshold that will absolutely change what AR is to this industry when we can get it good enough for AR. And we like the work that we're doing towards that is all about this automatic alignment. We already have it loading models well enough. We already like the interface 2D to 3D kind of interface questions are like there's some iterations to do on that, but it's pretty doable. But that alignment technology needs to be so good. It needs to be so comprehensive, so fast, and so resilient, because people are building walls. People are pouring concrete. People are changing things. We built our alignment tech, we call it Ryza, to be able to, it's like a self-healing, resilient alignment. So you can change things over here. It uses the existing data to correct for the missing data. And there's a few missing pieces to get that working on like a mobile device as good as we need it. And once that happens, then everyone can share, everyone can see the same AR thing, everyone can collaborate over the same information, and that information lives on the site.
Yep. I've seen multiple times where I thought, the which I want to talk to you about. I can't believe Magic Leap is still alive. By the way, we called them dead multiple times on the other show I might be on a regular basis. We called them dead, and then I saw you using them, and I went, maybe they're not. This will be fun to talk to them. I thought, a HoloLens 2, even the Magic Leap way back in the day would be like ubiquitous. People would have them, and I've since gone, no, that's not gonna happen. Yeah. Right? Like I get to be wrong. I get to dream, but I was wrong. Because you're right, like there will be a certain group of people who will almost always have them. So you'll have, say, two of them, and they might be QA/QC, or they might be, really advanced superintendents and project managers looking for certain things, checking off certain things, those kinds of roles, right? There'll be a couple of them, and then, but it will really hit it when you can do this and go, yep, and can go do this and go, and you, Logan, could pick it up and go, yeah, you're right. Check.
Someone back in the office, someone there on site with you, both of those.
In all of those realms where it's in that realm of information.
I've seen the Teams integration with AR, and it was pretty fantastic. It was around the service industry rather than around it was construction service, but that looked really good. I want to when you pulled up the headset, anybody who's not watching the video, who pulled up a headset, one of the questions that went away that you might know about that I've been curious about is safety. I've worn an AR headset for more than 4 hours, and it does cause tunnel vision. And it does cause sort of like you get a tunnel vision. We did it with like little lights off to the side, and as soon as you didn't see the lights anymore, you realized that your body had adjusted for these little AR windows, and you're no longer, you're no longer safe because you're not seeing things. Are there anything that has come up that's talked about that? Any mitigation? I know back then we were talking about when you start walking, turn off the AR for a bit so that they're not seeing the holograms as they're moving, so they don't, walk out, walk out into space.
Yes, the safety thing is a huge. It is an extremely important factor that is like, if it doesn't meet a safety criteria, then it's just a non-starter. I do see that with like the new Apple headset, where it might have some very impressive pass-through, but I don't predict very much adoption on a construction site where if something goes wrong, you're blindfolded. That's not what we do on construction sites in general. As far as safety goes, we find that it is pretty okay as long as you're using transparent headsets. And then, I mean, I don't know how much y'all have seen the way that we do our rendering differently than other AR
that Tron style
in the past. It's Tron style, and people
it's
are like,
Tron
oh,
style.
is this reducing? This is for render performance. Like, no, it actually is a little bit more costly render wise. But the problem is, if you are like with environmental AR, if you're rendering a floor and walls and ceiling, now you're in VR.
Yep.
Like, you've totally occluded your vision. So we're actually like doing mesh calculations on the fly in order to render just the edges. Now you can turn on surface rendering for specific categories. So for example, we'll have people do floors and walls and columns and everything in line work, and then the duct work is fully rendered, right? Because you want to be able to see those bends and turns better. But like, that's a super important thing, and we found that we can very easily walk a job site, step over rebar and everything. The other thing, I do think I'm gonna, for the video audience, compare here Magic Leap with the HoloLens.
Oh yeah.
And while the HoloLens is not as technically capable, I do kind of miss the totally transparent and flip up that the HoloLens gave us.
Was that capable on the XR10? Could you still do the flip up?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know if they got rid of that.
It had a big wide flip up.
Yeah, wide flip. That's right.
A little top heavy. XR10 is interesting. But yeah, you predicted Magic Leap being dead.
I did multiple times. We not predicted, called it dead because we thought it was dead.
I would almost call it resurrected, or like, what's the where you come back as something else? Reincarnated.
Yeah.
So yeah, because they were very flashy. They were very
born again.
Playful and consumery. And then they kind of like closed down, opened up with a new CEO, and they're just all business. And we weren't going to port originally, but then I think they saw us as a way to find good, hard, useful AR, which is what they needed in order to like demonstrate relevance, because the playfulness of the $3,500, it's not there yet. The market's not there, and being able to show like, all right, this is being used, this is saving money, was really big. So they gave us a ton of support. I still have meetings twice or once every couple of weeks with their engineering team, just asking how they can help us out. They've been amazing to work with. And so I've been able to give them feedback about, their OS development, and it's been a fantastic partnership with them.
That's cool, because I saw them show up after what we thought was the demise at a particularly large event, and poking around. And I was wondering if it would go somewhere. Yeah,
It is.
that's
It has been a
cool.
big shift in priorities, total rebuild of their, software from the ground up. It's been an interesting transformation, and I like working with it because it's just such a powerful computer. We can, get away with doing a lot more on it.
I have another question that's a little technical, and this one actually is
Yeah.
definitely about your product. So you're designing in Unity. One of the advantages in Unity is that its point cloud render is like fabulous. You go into Revisto, it makes the point cloud smaller, more dynamic, easier to see. Like and when you're in VR, not AR, those
Mhm.
point clouds are marvelous to be in. Like as a immersive environment, point cloud is beautiful. Are you looking at integrating that style of data, like scan data, into what you're capable of showing?
Looking at absolutely. Timing on that is another question. Like, so I think the way the way that we think about the future of this, like, and just an AR viewer, that's fine. That's not the thing that keeps me up at night. The thing that keeps me up at night is like, is this larger question of data overlay. And when we're talking about large data sets on large spaces, point cloud is
The
like
largest.
is the largest. It's wonderful. Now, there's a reason that it hasn't been high priority, and then another reason why it might take a little bit extra is, like, we were just talking about the safety thing. How are we making a decision about what we render? Are we going to end up in the same thing where it occludes all of our vision? And what are you like getting out of that when it's occluding all your vision? The other thing is like that the question we kind of touched on earlier of like, what is AR actually good for? What is it? When is it solving something that another solution isn't solving better? There's nothing I hate more than going onto LinkedIn and seeing all of these snazzy AR videos that are just bullshit. They're made up. They're using After Effects, and then they're not actually solving anything. And so with the point clouds and scans are great for bringing the real world into your digital version and comparing it there. AR is really good at bringing the digital into the real world. And so in some ways, it's like, we don't need to bring the real world back into itself as much. There are still use cases like seeing, having X-ray vision to see the real thing through a wall after you've closed stuff up, things like that.
Moving existing equipment. That's what we were using it for, is scan a pump, grab the pump, move the point cloud to the other area. Now I don't need to go to BIM. I can scan a pump. It ends up in AR. I move it over to the next location. It fits. I mean, Amazon's on it. If you ever go to Amazon and it's like, see this in my room, I'm like, that's awesome, man. I can see if the couch is going to fit.
Yeah,
It's not
there's a
accurate
lot of
enough
those,
to fit
like,
it through the
IQ.
door yet.
IQ was the first one that did that kind of thing. That would be an interesting use for the live scanning, where you scan something in the AR device and then just move it over, which I've done a little bit with what's my favorite? Polycam, I think.
I like, is it Site Scan and Bot Site Scan?
I've tried that one, yeah. Yeah, where you can scan
Somebody
and then
just
just
bought
like
it.
relocate and do it in AR.
Yeah.
It's got
The
some
guy
good
that
stuff.
runs that's a genius, man. He's an awesome dude.
Yeah. So I think that I mean, that's all there. We want to get live data, like IoT live data, aligned with everything. We want to get any of these other, like, maybe you've got a large BIM and we want to be able to bring in your skid separate, bring in scans, all that kind of stuff. The way that we've planned it, because we're still a pretty small team, we've had to really focus. And the thing that we've focused on most is, what are the fundamental limitations that has been causing HoloLenses to gather dust for the last 5 years? 6 years? How long have we had a HoloLenses of some kind? I don't know.
A long time.
But a lot of HoloLenses
almost 7
have gathered a lot of dust because they just weren't quite usable enough. And as we've filled out and taken care of all of those like fundamental problems, then we're going to start to add use cases and add features on top of that.
You know, Travis Voss is not here today. He's on a beach with Corona, but like his HoloLenses, multiple, were the ones that didn't gather dust. There's a company when he, you know, when
Love
he
it.
was at Helm Group that consistently, you know, dug in and said, we really found value here. Including Foreman calling him up and saying, you need to get one of those over here right away. So
Yeah.
I know when they were going to.
hardware, but the hardware was just such a different way about it, though. You know, I think
Yeah.
like Logan, you know, people like you, like in the software game, have to kind of sit there and be like, yeah, easy for you, because people bought the hardware just like it was almost a different scenario. It was like, well, I'm gonna buy the HoloLens and then I'm gonna figure out what the hell I want to do with it. Where it's
Yeah.
like the software has to prove the use, you know. I think you saw a lot of I think hardware is like, it's always flashy and new, and so that's
think
why you
that-
saw a lot of them collected.
That was the case, and now like Magic Leap is like, oh, we gotta get more hardware out
Yeah,
there.
they
'Cause
probably
people
thought
got
they were
burned.
dead too.
They did.
But we like, some of my favorite calls to get are the ones where they're like, all right, we bought this AR headset and we don't use it because it's too hard. What can you do for us? Those are the best, because they're already like, all right, you're ready to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, how about you buy my
this?
how about you buy my software and then I'll spend like 3 years trying to get it to work for you? You know what? Like, yeah, like if only it was that easy, right?
Yeah, but didn't Travis bought a couple, and then the first one was like dispute resolution, right? Like the owner, we want to do this. No, you can't. We want to do this. No, you can't. Travis, get that thing in here and then put it on the
Yeah.
face. Oh crap, we can't do that. Okay.
I saw it. I
Dispute
saw it
resolution.
used for like mock-ups and stuff too.
Yeah.
I think it was
Mhm.
like owner verification,
Mhm.
just like simple little ways to, like, if it's a design build project, it was kind of like sometimes the owner doesn't really know what design they're getting while it's being designed, and they want to be more involved in it. So you can prove a little value in the design build model by kind of bringing them into the design a little. It's in an environment that they could leverage a little easier.
That was actually that was one of my surprise use cases as well, where like we designed this for, you know, like shiny and flashy is great. We wanted to make the most mundane AR. We wanted to make this shiny toy be boring because it just works and does its job.
Yep.
So like you have the Wild, you have Endscape. These are really good for design and everything. And we said, all right, we're just there for site verification and concrete and steel. And then one of our early customers was a design build that does wineries and like destinations and resorts and stuff, where they couldn't use VR very well because the site and view were so critical. So they would bring their customers in, use the real world site and the real world view of Mount Hood or the ocean or whatever, and then use AR to put the building in their way. And that's how they got the actual, like, here's how it sits on the site and landscape and everything.
Do you guys remember the owl? Jeff, do you remember the owl? You ever go and you pay a quarter to look through the binoculars?
Yeah.
Yes. And this guy had this brilliant idea. He's like, I'm just going to put the image right inside of there of the new building, and you'll be able to look at the new building on these job sites. So they were mounting these in front of job sites for people to see what it's going to look like when the building's there. And it's very simplistic. It's like a semi-transparent overlay. And I was like, you are brilliant. You just made a ton of money off of, you know,
and
what amounts to like.
And that was, isn't that like little viewfinder when we were a kid? And you went,
yeah, what are those
and
called?
it just moved it. That's all it was.
And if you mount it to the site, then that takes care of a lot of the like alignment problems.
Mhm.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It was brilliant. He didn't
That's
even
clever.
sell them. He only rented them. So he'd rent them to you for a couple months, set them up for you and drop them
good
off,
stuff.
man. I don't even think he went away. I think he's still doing that.
Probably. I will tell you, I think there is, and Trent, you hit on it with the design build world and the IPD world, like these new collaborative worlds too. This is where I think like the Vision Pro, I think it has a huge use case. I don't think it's going and taking it out to the site and trying to wear it. Logan, I think you're right about a lot of the things. Like the pass-through is good enough for me to walk around my office and not, walk into the wall or trip over too many things, but can you imagine in a design build world or an IPD world where you're making real-time decisions and you've got, part of your team out doing things, you've got part of the things rendered or built in virtually and in a model, right? And you've got all these disparate parts and pieces that have to come together in some sort of context to make a really good decision. Like, how the hell do you do all that? Well, now you've got a set of platforms with a set of tools that work well together where the information can flow back and forth. And now, damn it, you can have somebody in the office that's an owner that doesn't know exactly what, shit, I don't know half the time what Jonathan and Trent are talking about anyway, when it's pumps and skids and, I'm going to move this chiller. I don't know what the hell you're talking about. Like, half the time I just nod my head and smile a lot. But if I can have this on and I can see, and then you can be marking up and showing, man, again, not walking back to the trailer, not having another 2 weeks for a damn meeting, doing it in real time, man. Now and I think we'll see a bunch of these different pieces of hardware in different places that will get used more. We'll dust them off and start using them.
Mm-hmm. And that's huge. Not walking back to the trailer, being able to solve it right here, right now. Oh, that's everything. And yeah, I do think there is a lot of room. So like I mentioned Enscape and the Wild recently. And like I fully imagine a future where my AR company is amazing and gigantic and we make all the money in the world and I have a, I don't know, yacht in the Bahamas, whatever, that I mostly ignore because I just like writing code. It's a sickness. but the totally coexisting with the Wild and Enscape, because you've got the one that is very much about just like, let's have a very feelings based, like let's get a good rendering and interactive and walkthrough of your design. One click. I love Enscape. The Wild for doing design collaboration is absolutely incredible. I had have you ever had Gabe on? Gabe Pye, he's was the CEO of the Wild. Now Autodesk bought them, so he's something of XR head honcho something.
Nope.
They did an amazing work making good interactivity to do collaborative design and stuff, but it's very VR. It's very beforehand. And then there's this unsolved problem of on the site. And I feel like these things can all be friends. They can all coexist because they're doing very different jobs and they need to be different tools because the jobs are so different.
Different tools, and they need to integrate with the other hardware as well. The things like Jonathan and Trent were talking about, like you need the total stations, you need the scanning, you need all of these things captured and coalescing and working together if you're going to do it.
It needs to fit within the existing workflows, not creating totally separate invasive workflows.
We have enough to do. We don't need new things to do.
Yeah.
I have a question for you. We're kind of running up on time. So this kind of gets us a little off subject, I guess, but you obviously own a lot of AR and VR headsets at some level. And so what is the funnest thing that you do, not work related, doesn't have to be making money, in AR and or VR that you're willing to talk about in public?
Of course, that caveat. Okay, here's one that surprised me a lot. So like I love me some Beat Saber. There's a horror game, Brookhaven Experiment. I've never beaten it because I can't get all the way through. Half-Life Alyx is one of the best games ever made by anyone ever. Incredible game. But the big surprise to me was Super Hot, and I use it like Tai Chi. Have you ever played Super Hot?
Not yet, but I'm gonna go get it. Literally, like when you said
get
that,
it, like, get it. It is so it's kind of like a first person shooter kind of a thing, but time moves as fast as you move. So it encourages this sort of bullet time. So you have to slowly go down, plan out your movements, grab the gun that's falling through the air, shoot that guy, get the throwing star, throw over there. And it's all just like so meditative. And it, like, I feel like my core is healthier after I play this game. It's the most fun.
I'm definitely picking up that game. Jeff,
there we go.
Super Hot. It's good times.
That's great, man. That was awesome. That was I think we got to leave it on that, right? Like that's everybody's going to go out now. Now you can hit up Logan online and you can talk to him about how he gave you your new Tai Chi style gaming. I'm going to have to buy one of the AR headsets, I think, to do that. Eventually.
That one's on
right?
that one's on the VR headset. I think the Quest 3 is going to be a good one. That should be soon.
Is it?
Mhm.
I've got the Quest too, so I can go grab it.
Yeah, you can grab it on there.
All right. Well, with that, Logan, thanks for stopping in. Where can people go learn a little bit more about Argyle if they want to know more?
You can go to argyle.build because argyle.com was way too generic. I don't know what we were thinking. Argyle.build. You can find us on LinkedIn. We like to show videos. We never make the bullshit rendering videos. We just do capture from our app and put it up on the internet, and it seems to resonate. So we'll keep doing it.
Yeah, I've been enjoying the geek out. I met Logan and Merritt a long time ago when it was real early on, and got to walk through it in some really interesting ways, and it was super fun. So excited to see you guys grow and go more, and thanks for joining us and geeking out and getting a little bit dork on the Dorkcast for us.
I love it. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. And, boys, it was great to jump in again. Sorry for my technical difficulties. So if you were watching in, I was frozen for a while. I wasn't that stoic. I wish I could be, but I was not. So thanks, Windows, for updating on me before another show. But with that, this has been episode 69, Mixing Reality with Fantasy.